Hi, welcome to my video. This video is going to be about how to bring in or import into MayaStar avatars from other developers. Lots of developers out there have their own developers kits for, just about anything. Mainly people who have been asking me, how do I bring in other avatars from other developers from their kits, such as Slink or Maitreya or Beleza, or many others. There's a whole bunch of different avatars out there and developer kits out there. And it's not just for avatars themselves. I know there's some who are selling shoes, selling feet, this and that, and so you want to know how to bring those in. So I thought I'd do this video. It's actually fairly simple once you know the basic concepts. You need to import you need to get like I say, if you already have the developer's kit, you normally will already have the avatar or what have you already rigged in a file. And I'm going to show you, you can use a DAE file. You can import a DAE file or an FBX file, or you can import a Maya file. Obviously, hopefully if they have a Maya file, that would make things a lot easier. But I'm going to show you how to do it with a DAE file, which is probably pretty common format since Second Life uses DAE files. So okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to import the avatar from the developer's kit. So I'm going to show you how to do the DAE. I usually find that I have the best luck for my version of Maya, which is 8.0 or 8.0, is to use the Open Collada, the Open Collada plugin. I tend to have a little bit better luck. It's sort of hit and miss. Sometimes the Autodesk FBX plugin works better. It just depends on how the DAE file was created in the first place. What program they used and what version of Collada did they use when they exported out the original DAE file. So you might have to try several different versions. So I'm going to go Window, Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager. Now I already have this is the Open Collada. I already have the Open Collada loaded. I also have, here's the Autodesk plugin for Collada, which is fbxmaya.mll. And I also, as you notice here, I have several different versions of the Autodesk's version. I have 2012, and which actually 2012 has a lot of problems. It seems like a lot of people have a problem with the 2012 version, but that's actually the newest version that I could actually install into Maya 8.0. But I don't really use it that often. It's more for when I'm trying to import. Sometimes 2012 will import a DAE file better than the Maya binary, or not binary, the Maya.mll file. And these are just different versions of it. So anyway, so I'm going to use the Open Collada since I usually have a little bit better luck with that normally. And this is the information for that. It's Open Collada 3.05b, vendor feeling software. And so anyway, so I'm going to close that. So I already have it loaded. One thing you want to make sure is you never want to have more than one Collada plugin loaded, meaning a check mark next to it, at any one time, because they can interfere, especially when you're importing. They can interfere with each other. So I usually only have one loaded at a time. And so anyway, so that's just a little side note. So okay, so we have the Open Collada already there, already loaded. So I'm going to import. Now, one of the things about Open Collada is that it does not like here's some DAE files. Here's an Open Collada female DAE file, and it's actually in this folder called pound weights. And this folder is actually in, whoops, I'll go back one. It's actually in my Documents folder. There's pound weights. Open Collada, for some reason, doesn't like it when you nest files within folders within folders. So I just went ahead and I saved a file just on my C drive, So here it is, fitted mesh female avatar. I exported it out of, I just created it. I took the default avatar and I exported it out as a DAE file just for these demonstration purposes, and I exported it out as an open collada format. And so I'm now going to import it. Okay, now I imported it, and you'll notice that the avatar is huge. Now this is actually the size of the avatar in Second Life. But the really important thing to note is, even though when I select the skeleton, you know, it's not rigged. Okay, but so when I select the avatar mesh, if you look here, this is what's really super important. This inputs skin cluster 35. Now it could say skin cluster 2, skin cluster 1, skin cluster 510. Doesn't matter, as long as it has a skin cluster. This skin cluster here is where all the weighting information is stored. So even though it's not rigged to a skeleton, the information is still there. Okay. If for some reason you wanted to rig it to the skeleton, back to the skeleton for whatever reason, you just felt like it, you would select the avatar mesh. You would come in here. I'll tear off MayaStar. You come in here for avatars for weight transferring and click on detach skin with history. Don't ask me why you have to do this first, but I did a couple of tests. You may not have to do this, but I ended up having to do this. So I'm going to detach with history. I'm not going to detach skin here because that will lose the skin cluster. When you detach with history, detach skin with history, it keeps the skin cluster. Okay, so we have the avatar selected. You can come in here to collision bone select, normal bone select, smooth bind skin, and now you can see the avatar is now rigged. Okay, so the avatar is nice and rigged. We'll go to bind pose. So we have a rigged avatar, although we didn't actually need to have it rigged for this next. I don't think you have to have it rigged for this next spot with Dora. We're going to save the weights. We have the weights, and we're going to save the weights. And I do believe if I open up my appearance editor slider, that we can go in here to torso, and I think this will work. No, it won't work because it's not a oh, I know it won't. It doesn't work because this skeleton isn't a MayaStar skeleton. It doesn't have certain inputs into it to make the scales change and all that kind of stuff. So that's why you just can't use the sliders with any skeleton, you know. So anyway, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to export out the weights. So I highly recommend you don't use the built-in Skinweights exporter. Where is it? Is it under animation? Skin, edit skin, edit smooth skin, and I think here's the export import. These don't work very well at all because they use like an image map. You see it creates a black and white or a grayscale image of the weights. It translates the weights, the numbered weights, into a grayscale, but it doesn't do it just doesn't do a very good job. It never imports the weights back to exactly the way they were before. They come in pretty close, but they just never import exactly the way they were when you exported them. The original weights. And the smaller the map size, you know, these are actually, it's going to, like I said, it's going to create an image 256 pixels by 256 pixels. And the smaller the map, the less accurate it is. The bigger the map, the more accurate it is. But you also then have to worry about overlapping UVs. So if I were to go into the UV texture editor, you know, it actually is only going to import this center one, you know, because the head and the legs are actually outside the normal UV map range of 0 to 1 and 0 to a +1. So the head, so these wouldn't even show up. Now, if the head and the legs were in here, they're overlapping now. Now you have overlapping UVs. So you'd have to either shrink these down so that they all fit in here, and then of course you would need a huge, very huge resolution to get all the information in if you even wanted to have it even halfway accurate. So that's why I highly recommend you don't use. Now, newer versions of Maya, they may have finally digitized it instead of using an image, using digital information of numbers instead of an image. But as far as I know, they still are using that same old system, which really stinks. So anyway, so I always use Dora Skinweights, and it's just a little button that I made on a shelf under polygons. You can get this nice little plug-in for free at Creative Crash. I'll put a link in the description so that you can get it. It's absolutely free. It works fantastic. It's a little bit slower, but it's 100% accurate. And so, so all you do is with the Dora Skinweights is you select your avatar mesh that has a skin cluster. You know, I don't even think it has to be rigged to the skeleton, because it's just getting the skin cluster information. That's all it's doing. And so you select your mesh, your avatar. You can see how it has these nice green lines indicating that it's in object mode and that it's selected. And you come in here and you click the Export tab and you give it a name. You know, you could type in any name you wanted, you know, and hit the export button. And but I'm not going to do that since I've already saved it, you know, fitted mesh female weights. So you export out your weights, and then you have this next part to do. You can either do there's always different ways you can do things. I often like to export out the mesh as an OBJ, simply because it gets rid of a lot of garbage. And a lot of errors can creep into a mesh, and so by exporting out as an OBJ, it just, here I already exported it out. It just kind of cleans up the mesh and gets rid of a lot of things. The other possibility is if you don't want to export it out as an OBJ or an FBX file, or even a DAE file, but you want to make sure that you get rid of the skeleton. Now, this mesh is rigged to a skeleton, so the first thing we'd have to do is we would need to detach skin. So we come here, detach skin. And I would delete history and freeze transformation. Oh, because avatar as owner is locked. Oh, okay, it's just telling me down here we can't freeze transformation. So, okay, well, you don't really need to, because it's still at 1, 1, and 1. So, oh, it's saying that it's locked because this stuff is, we'll just unlock it. And now we should be able to freeze transformation. Yep, we are able to freeze transformation. Okay, so you don't actually have to freeze transformation if you don't want to, only if you resized it. Okay, so what we could do is, like I said, in your outliner, just delete the skeleton so that there's no skeleton. You want to make sure there's no skeleton. Theoretically, well, technically, theoretically, we could have done this too. We could have, well, I don't know if this will work or not. We could have detached with history, deleted the skeleton, and then saved this, export it out as a Maya binary file, like I did here. I already saved it out as a Maya binary file. Or we could have exported out as a Maya ASCII file, or we could have exported it out as a whole bunch of other things. It'll be up to you, because all we want is the mesh. Like I said, we could have maybe exported out as a binary file without the skeleton. No, as soon as you delete the skeleton, it gets rid of the skin cluster. So we couldn't have deleted, we could not have detached skin with history and then deleted the skeleton. It would have lost the skin cluster anyway. So there we go. I thought I figured out a shortcut, and then I just realized, no, that wouldn't have worked. Anyway, so we've exported out our mesh without a skeleton, without it rigged, and we've saved our skin weights using Dora Skinweights. And so the next step is to, I always find we could technically at this point, we could activate MayaStar and go from there, but I always find I like it best to start off with a fresh new scene, much less likely to have garbage in the scene. Garbage nodes, they're called. And so I'm just going to go new scene. Okay. And now I'm going to activate MayaStar. Okay, and MayaStar has come in, as you can see. And now I'm going to import. And I'm going to import, like I say, I have several options. I could import the Maya binary file that I exported out, or I can import an OBJ, which is what I prefer to do. So I'm going to import the OBJ. We just exported out. It's giving me a couple of errors, but that's okay. Okay, now you'll notice the avatar is huge. That's actually the size of the avatar in Second Life. Okay. The avatar is so small in MayaStar because that's the actual size they created the avatar. Originally, they used Maya to create the avatar a long time ago when they first started Second Life. And they created the avatar in Maya super tiny. So that's why all the files from Linden Lab, all their OBJs, the avatar is really small. Although most people don't realize it's really small. So anyway, so the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to scale down, so you go into move mode, and we need to scale down the avatar so it's the same size as the MayaStar avatar. And we want to make sure that the pivot point is right in the middle of the grid there, so that when we scale it down to 0.01, which is 100 times smaller, it shrinks exactly to the right position. Okay, then you want to freeze transformation, and I would delete history. Let's see. One of the things you might also want to look at real quick, and it's really not that important, but it's always nice to have something nice and clean, is we're going to the input-output connections for the female OBJ that we just imported. And you can see there's a few things going on here. This would probably be just fine. This would probably be just fine and wouldn't cause any problems. But I always like, to get rid of things if I don't need them. So I could either select these and delete them here, or I can open up the outliner and come in here and delete them there, like such. And you can see it got a lot simpler. Okay, and it's still there. This is what we imported, and now it's a lot cleaner. The less complicated it is when you start, the less likely there's going to be problems that come in. So okay, so we brought our avatar. You might have depending on your DAE file, the avatar might have been laying on her side or pointing in the wrong direction, say on her side and like that, instead of being upright like this is. All sorts of weird things. Sometimes when you import them, the avatar, when you import the DAE file, the avatar's arms or something will be all weird. It'll look like the mesh has been deformed. All you have to do is detach with history, and the mesh will pop back into place like normal. So if that happens, you'll know what to do next. Okay, so we make sure that our avatar is facing the right direction and it's the right scale and it's 111. Now all we have to do is I'm going to hide the real avatar over here in the layers menu, and all you have to do now is with the new avatar selected, or body part or whatever it is, go collision bone select, normal bone select, smooth line skin, and just use the the standard. I've covered this in other videos. Selected joints really and super important. I never do multiple bind poses. Newer versions of Maya, I would make sure you turn off multiple bind poses. Max influence is the most max influence in Second Life is 4. I always use 3. 3 seems to work just fine. Drop off rate of 4, it doesn't matter. You can play with those. I always have maintain max influence off. This is super, super, super important. Remove unused influences. You do not want that checked. There's only certain circumstances when you want to check. Just better to leave that off. Chloride skeleton is fine. And you click bind skin. Okay. Now this avatar is bound to the MayaStar skeleton. So now the sliders for the MayaStar will work. So if you come in here and make her breasts 100 times bigger, they get bigger. But you can see they look horrible. That looks horrible. You know, default bigger. That's because that's just the default weighting. So now what we're going to do is we are going to import our, open up Dora Skinweights again. You know, select the avatar mesh, and it's and when you open up Dora, it's by default on import. Select the weights that you saved. You want to use vertex order, and you click import. Okay, now importing always takes a lot longer than exporting. It's just the way it is. Because it's actually saved all of the data information as numbers in what's actually kind of like a text file, a TXT file. If we were to open up, you know, this file in a the notepad, you know, in Notepad, you would actually see a bunch of numbers, you know, a ton of numbers. And so it takes a little while to import because it's actually importing the exact weights that you exported. And the more vertices a mesh has, the longer it takes to import. So it really depends on how many vertices make up the mesh and how fast is your computer. I have a 10-year-old computer. It is a 3.2 gigahertz processor, but it's only one processor. It's not multi-processor. It is hyperthread, which helps a little bit, but it is a 10-year-old computer, so it took a while. On newer computers, that would have happened in about 3 seconds instead of the length of time it took. Okay, so it imported, and it tells you that it brought it in. You'll notice 3,618 vertices is what it imported, and you'll notice that's the same exact number as this avatar's vertices. So that just tells you that all the vertices have received information imported onto them. So we go okay. And now when we make her breasts bigger, apply slider, there we go. And it will work just like it does in Second Life. Here are my body types: voluptuous, hourglass, waif. Second Life, that's what the avatar actually looks like in Second Life. This is the mesh default. Okay, and everything works. I mean, you can come here to animation and poses and female walk and play. And so you now have a new avatar that you can copy the skin weights from. Newer versions of Maya, the default settings for copy skin weights works great. Older versions of Maya, I find substitute geometry works better. So if I had a newer version of Maya, I'd probably just always do copy skin weights, which is not copy skin weights here, although theoretically you could use this to transfer weights over, but it's just very slow. It's worth it to wait to bring it in. But as far as copying weights from the avatar, the built-in Maya default works just fine, and it does it very, very fast. And so I'm going to go to bind pose. She goes back to bind pose. So Dora Skinweights is great for certain things, but for actually transferring the weights from this avatar here that we see to some mesh clothing that you've created, that's totally different. Let's see. Okay, so the next thing that I would do is I would create a new layer, and I would name this whatever, you know, if it's Slink, or if it's Bentreya or Beleza, or, you know, any number of a bunch of others that are out there. I know I'm forgetting another big major one. I'm sorry. I'm just going to name it new underscore or yeah, avatar, you know, and whatever color you pick is going to be the color that this will highlight. You know, like say if I say purple, now when I select the avatar in certain modes, these lines, instead of being green, will be purple. But anyway, that's just something to keep in mind. Oh, in fact, I'll show you. Okay, this is not a part of the layer yet. We just created the layer. It's a blank layer. So you select your avatar, you put your mouse over the name, and you hold down the right mouse button, and you click Add Selected Objects. And now we can hide and show it. Anyway, so now if you wanted these avatars, now we could do two things. We could do a number of things. If you wanted to, you could, you know, go save as and give it a new name, you know, new avatar, and hit save. And so whenever you wanted to use that, you could. Or you could go, if you wanted the avatars to always, when you activate MayaStar, to always be there, so that they're just always there when you're ready, you could go File, Save As, and then you come in here to your My Documents, and you come in here to Maya, and my version is 8.0 of Maya, and you come to your scripts folder. There's older versions of MayaStar that I keep as backups, and you'll see, you know, the Maya binary file. You'll see MayaStar. And if you hit save, and it will say, "You sure you want to save over this?" You say yes. I would highly recommend making a copy of the MayaStar, and that's what I did here. These other backup copies are older versions of MayaStar that I was working on, you know. So I have a lot of backup copies. MayaStar optimized and all that kind of stuff. So once you saved over that file, the MayaStar.mb file, anytime you activate MayaStar, this avatar would come in and it would have its own layer, you know, and you'll be able to do whatever you want. The same, you know, copy the skin, you can copy weights, and it's this copy weights that I suggest using. Older versions of Maya, this is the only option you have: smooth weights or not smooth weight copies. I usually, when I'm doing mesh clothing, copying the weights from the avatar, I always use smooth skin weights. The default settings for the newer versions of Maya, probably like 2009 and newer, if you have different options here, you have a newer version of Maya, just go Edit, Reset Settings, and whatever the default settings are, they work great. You do not have to use Substitute Geometry if you do not want to. At that point, the great things about Substitute Geometry is you start off with mesh clothing that's not rigged, and you don't have to rig it first. You just select this avatar, and you select your mesh clothing, and you go here, and you go, Substitute Geometry, and it's has all the bones, the skin cluster, and it's totally rigged. You'll still have to probably do some adjustment, but that's all you have to do. If you're copying the skin weights, what you do is you import your mesh clothing. You do a quick, say I imported a skirt or a dress. You select your dress or your skirt or your pants or whatever it is, and then you go collision bone select, normal bone select, smooth bind skin. Do a quick smooth bind skin. It's giving me an error because there's nothing selected. You do a quick smooth bind skin, and then you would come in here, and you could either do it here, select the avatar first, hold down the shift key and select your mesh clothing, or you could do it in the outliner window. Select the avatar mesh there, hold down because your mesh clothing would be down on the bottom, and you click down here while holding down the control key. So say I wanted to do fitted mesh female weights to this mesh. It would be select that first, hold down that control key and select that. Or if I wanted these weights to go to here, or to go to this mesh, I want the weights to go from here to here. So you select the mesh there, hold down the control key and select it there. And then you would come in here for weight transferring. This is just exactly the same thing as coming here and clicking there. It's the exact same thing. It's just a shortcut. And then, like I said, newer versions of Maya, just hit reset and then click copy or apply, either one. And you've just have transferred the weights. A couple of things you can't do. Auto mesh resizing. Let's see, will that work or not? No, it won't work. It won't work. Well, if you're doing fitted mesh, for the 5 standard sizes, you wouldn't be doing 5 standard sizes for a custom avatar. That's one of the great things about fitted mesh avatars is you don't have to worry about sizing. And so auto mesh resizing is not meant to be used with these custom mesh avatars. Let's see. Some developers, like Slink, I'm currently working with Slink, and I'm developing a system that will allow you to reshape mesh clothing designed for, say, the default avatar, and reshape it using the auto mesh resizing to reshape it to the Slink avatar. But it's a very complicated. I had to set it up. It takes a long time to get it to work because it uses blend shapes, and you have to have 2 avatars that have the same exact vertices, the same exact, same number of vertices, but also the vertices have to be in the same order. So that gets quite a bit complicated. It took me days worth of work, a couple of days worth of work to get it to work. So I know Slink is going to have a MayaStar file that you'll be able to get from Slink. You have to apply to be a developer, and there's no guarantee that just because you have MayaStar that you'll be accepted as a developer for Slink. But Slink should fairly soon have a MayaStar file. And it will have, like I said, it will have a few extra things, like such as said, the auto mesh resizing will work with it. So you'll be able to resize your mesh clothing that you have for the standard avatar and reshape it to fit the Slink avatar using the auto mesh resizer or resizing thing down here. So, alrighty, I think that covers about it. I know this is over a half-hour video. Once you do it a few times, it'll be so fast to get these avatars into MayaStar that it will take you probably about 10-15 minutes. But I'm just trying to explain everything in detail so you know what's going on. So, alrighty, well, a lot of people had asked me for this video, and I am so glad that I finally got around to making it, and it should make everybody's life a lot easier. So we'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.